Tonight's Top Gear. Tiff races at Goodwood in a priceless Aston Martin. Alfa Romeo Sportwagon. Is it a real estate car or just pretending? And the car supermarket for classics. The award-winning Alfa Romeo 156 was introduced in 1997 to tumultuous acclaim. Not happy with having a car that was universally worshipped, Alfa tried to spoil it by sticking a diesel under the bonnet, but everybody still loved it. They tried even harder by saddling it with a tiny little petrol engine, but still, everybody loved it. Now Alfa Romeo really are getting ticked off, so they've grafted a great lump onto the back of it and turned it into, well, an estate of sorts. And has it worked? Do we hate it now?
I'll just shut up for a second so you can get your eyes around it. Lovely, isn't it? From the front, of course, on the Sportwagon, well, nothing much is new, which is a good job because this is one of the boldest, most charismatic faces around. The real beauty of this car, though, is that its bodywork is completely unadorned. Apart, that is, from this lovely chrome door handle. Just watch yourself in supermarket car parks, that's all, with it dings and scrapes. As for whether or not we're supposed to think of it as an estate car, well, the rear doors are longer than they are in the saloon, although they do keep the recessed door handle here, which is another fantastic detail. And does this extra bit at the back, well, does that say estate to you? The tapered tailgate does dig pretty deep into the roofline, although the rear overhangs are really very short. In fact, I reckon fastback would be a better name for it than Sportwagon. Although either way, what we have here is that rare thing, that actually looks much more sexy than the saloon in which it was based.
So it looks sensational, but let's face it, it's just not going to be as good to drive as the saloon, is it? Actually, it's fantastic. Through all the troubled times, Alfa Romeo has always managed to build fabulous engines. Listen to that, it sounds so nice. And while the 155 bhp twin-spark power unit is a little bit lacking in grunt, I reckon it's probably the sweetest one from the 156 range. And it's not just a pretty noise. The twin-spark is lighter and less nose-heavy than its more powerful V6 brother, so it handles with greater purity. Super sharp steering helps too, and the gear change has a silky action, although the brakes could do with a little more feel. The seats are actually better to look at than they are to sit in, while the dashboard, on the other hand, actually looks more over-stylized than it is to use. These air conditioning controls, for example, are an absolute paragon of logic and simplicity. Overall, well, the 156 Sportwagon is an enormously likeable car. Compared to the Audi A4 Avant and the BMW 3 Series Touring, it's also monstrously good value. This 2-litre twin-spark Veloce costs £19,175, severely undercutting its more sober opposition. So, we may as well chalk up another winner to Alfa Romeo then, the 156 Sportwagon. Hang on, hold your horses a minute.
Aren't we forgetting something here? Look, I'm getting a bit tired asking this question. Is this an estate or not? Well, to be fair to Alfa Romeo, they call it a life support machine for the active, with a versatile load area. Now that to me means that I should be able to get, I don't know, a dog. Come on, Ryan, look.
Or a chair.
Come on, it's lovely in here.
A mountain bike.
How's that, Ryan?
Okay, a very small dog. But with the back seats up, would you believe the Sportwagon actually has less carrying capacity than the saloon?
Which should make it absolutely useless. And of course, we still love it. How very Italian. Clearly, there are far more practical cars than this Alfa, but there aren't that many that are as beautiful or as entertaining, certainly not for the money. Think instead of the 156 Sportwagon as a rakish 5-door coupe, and you should both enjoy many, many happy years together.
Everybody seems to love classic cars, the nostalgia, the craftsmanship, but not me. They're too slow, don't handle, and don't stop properly. If I wanted a good value second-hand car, I'd go for something more modern and reliable. But there's a bloke who reckons that good cheap classics are just as easy to run and more fun to be with. We'll see.
Buying one of your cars, is it going to be loads of hassle and cost me millions?
It doesn't have to be. You've got to be selective in terms of what you buy, and it's got to be something that will fit the bill for you. I mean, often people look at things that are outrageously difficult to own on a day-to-day basis, but there's plenty around that can be run regularly and easily.
Right, Mike, I want a car for all seasons, bit of town work, bit of motorway shenanigans. What do you recommend?
One of my personal favourites is the old Rover 80. 2.25 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine, as used for years and years in the Land Rover. So parts for servicing and so on are dead easy in that way. And it's the last of what I would describe as the genuine Rovers. And it's a bit of old England inside, leather and walnut. It's wonderful.
What's it like to drive? Because it looks fairly ancient to me. It feels very heavy. Oh, gee. Oh,
get the power on, you'll find it'll come round beautifully.
Now, Mike, you say this car handles. You've got to have reproductive organs the size of footballs to enjoy yourself in this car.
If you'd have seen the one I had when I was 18, you would have understood what I meant. Once you learn to handle it and learn to cope with it, it's brilliant fun. It really is.
Depends what you mean by fun. Let's try something else.
This Dolomite, say I wanted to buy spares for that. How much is it going to cost me for, say, a set of brakes and the exhaust for that?
Exhaust system, I mean, that recently had an exhaust system. I think the price I paid was about $120.
They stopped building Dolomites in 1981, but at least it's a classic I can relate to.
I've actually got a soft spot for this car because I spent my formative years as a passenger in one of them. Cars of this era haven't got much grip, which makes them more fun. You can get the tail out if that's your sort of thing. The driving position is a little odd. Compared with cars today where you sit quite low, the steering wheel's down by your knees, you feel on top of things, but it's not uncomfortable.
Better, but still not quite me.
I'm not an expert, but I don't mind getting my hands mucky. How do I keep up to pace with this thing then?
Well, you don't need to be an expert. That's the whole point about running a classic car. Even the novice who's never really played with them before, they can get to this. It's not a sealed unit like a modern vehicle. And even if the car won't start, the most common thing on any old car tends to be grubby points or points needing adjusting. It's a 2-minute job. You just flick off the dizzy cap, your points are inside there and you can get at them easily.
Here we go. That gear change isn't too bad. I can get used to that. That's not. And actually, sailing around here, this feels actually quite sorted. This is all right. I can get used to this.
This 1964 Merc 190 has certainly got the right look. You can also insure one of these things on a specialist policy for as little as £100 a year. And it does 30 miles to the gallon. Sounded tempting until I found out the price, £4,950. That's a lot of cash for a 35-year-old machine.
Right, I've driven the other three, but enough of moss in the windowsill. This is my idea of classic motoring. It's a Mark I Golf GTI.
On sale now for just £2,295, this Minter started the hot hatch craze back in 1976.
Much better than the Mark IV today, that's for sure.
4 classics under £5,000. I could feel myself beginning to weaken.
I was that close to being a fully paid-up member of the Classic Car Enthusiasts Club. I was ready for the boiler suit, the beard even. What I wasn't ready for were the new friends. The weirdos that come up to you, want to kick tyres, say hello, be your mate. I don't want any more mates. I want a new car back.
Coming up on Top Gear, Goodwood's £40 million race. And watch out, Grandad, it's pensioners in the fast lane. But first, the Top Gear verdict.
Now then, what have we got here? Nice alloys, purposeful stance, twin exhaust pipes, slick paint job. Interesting.
What on earth is it? Well, it's called an FTO, and until now it's only been available as a grey import. But today you can buy one in any Mitsubishi UK dealership. There's no doubt that the bold lines of the FTO do have head-turning appeal. Both from the front and the side, it looks the part with its menacing stare and sharp midriff. But round the back, it looks a bit too kick-car-y for my taste. I mean, this fog lamp looks as if it's just been bolted on. A look inside reveals some splashes of creative flair, but the overall feel is businesslike rather than inspiring. But Mitsubishi has definitely made an effort. So a decent 7 out of 10 for looks. Fortunately, the FTO's aggressive intent isn't let down by weak performance. Power comes from a rather husky 2-litre V6 engine that develops just under 200 brake horsepower. Mixed with some rather clever variable valve technology and a smooth 5-speed gearbox, it'll hit 60 in 7.3 seconds and go on to 130. So 7 out of 10 for performance. The FTO is front-wheel drive, and although the super firm setup invites you to toy with its limits, any enjoyment is overshadowed by the unforgiving ride. The steering, though, delivers a decent amount of feedback, so we'll give it 7 out of 10 for ride and handling. The FTO doesn't win many points for pricing. The V6 engine, aircon, sports seats, leather steering, and a 3-year unlimited mileage warranty are all standard. At a fiver short of 23 grand, it really should have some extra incentives. Room for rear passengers would be a start. For value for money, it's a rather unimpressive 5 out of 10. The FTO is a cracking coupe, and its V6 entertains well, but it can't quite match the all-round ability of the Toyota Celica, which is a staggering £6,000 cheaper. Plus, there's Alfa's gorgeous GTV to consider. It may be slower, but it does have more cachet. So, when compared to its competitors, the Mitsubishi can only manage 7 out of 10. It looks good and goes well, but with superior rivals, the Top Gear verdict on the Mitsubishi FTO is a slightly disappointing 7 out of 10.
During the last 15 years, the number of drivers aged over 65 has more than doubled, and the figure keeps on rising. Pensioner power is on the move.
The problem is, though, old people are old. They have rheumatism and arthritis and ear trumpets. And unfortunately, most of the young engineers who designed these cars are sprightly, youthful. They had no idea what it was like for somebody with a vintage body to drive a modern car. Until, that is, some bright sparks at Ford came up with this, the old codger suit, which I shall now demonstrate.
It may look like it came out of a quick fit fitter's locker, but this high-tech suit cost £5,000 to develop and is designed to age a body like mine by about 30 years.
Oh, no, no, no. Oh.
By restricting body movement to the joints, the special padding replicates lumbago, arthritis, and all the other afflictions that slow you down in your twilight years. And they haven't forgotten the cataracts.
Rub your rosaries, everybody. I'm off. Oh, my word. I can't deal with it. I've got the point. Oh, my word. There used to be old trees around here. I must confess that when I'm driving along and I see old people driving really dithery, I do sometimes mutter, you know, get off the road. But now I understand the way that things are for them and what they're going through. I'm not going to mutter it anymore. I'm going to shout it.
Ford is using the suit to make its cars more user-friendly for pensioners. But there are some senior citizens who don't need its help just yet. This is the Mini Cooper, the legendary Monte Carlo rally winner and Kings Road go-karts, which has been driven by such dolly birds as Britt Ekland, Twiggy, Mary Quant, and now from Sheffield, 90-year-old Rosalie Watts.
I wanted a new Mini type car.
Yeah.
And it so happened that this was available. And I looked at it and I thought, that's a little beauty. So that's why I have a Mini Coupe.
So are all your reactions, you know, eyesight, all that sort of thing, you don't suffer from any of these traditional older driver problems? You
Well, I
fit as
don't-
a fiddle.
I'm on the whole pretty good. Where's that? What does it say?
Not that one.
What does it say?
You're testing my eyesight now. When did you actually start driving then?
In 1936.
Oh, nipping man, we're talking.
He's going.
Honestly, aren't they?
Yes, oh, they're awful. And if they see a lady driver. Generally, they feel that the ladies are not capable.
Well, they do look around quite a bit, don't they?
Well, so do the men.
We look at the stereo, I'll confess to that. I've got my eyes on the wireless.
Well, you see, your mind is not on the road. Mine is always on the road.
Right, that's me told. Perhaps I'll have a smoother ride with the amazing Bob Curry, the world's oldest trucker.
How many miles do you reckon you've done then?
Well, I think myself maybe it's 4 million.
4 million?
Yes. I am the only person in the United Kingdom that holds an HGV Class 1 licence at my age. And of course, I'm turned 80.
So what state are you in then, in terms of reactions and movements and all that?
For driving.
Well, your body, you know, just your body lets you down.
Well, it doesn't seem to let me down. I get a medical every year and it tells me that I'm great. Of course, you see, another thing is, I've been a furniture remover all my life. So that's why I'm maybe fit, because my bones has been well looked after. You see, you get these fellas, they try to keep themselves fit. And they buy these, what do they call the stuff they buy for heavyweight lifting things?
Yeah.
Well, they spend all that money on heavyweight lifting things to keep themselves fit. We didn't have to spend money like that. We used people's furniture for learning us to do it.
So there you have it, Bob's tip for old age driving. Don't wait for the Ford suit to work its magic. Just pop next door and shift your neighbour's piano.
Stay with us for a frightfully expensive race. But first, our regular review of what's been making the news.
So, with the diversion of the motor show out of the way, what else has been happening in the car world?
Well, industry gurus CAP have announced the winners in the very first Used Car Awards, a sort of Oscar ceremony for second-hand motors. Best city car went to the Ford Ka for its low running costs. The dependable Volkswagen Golf was the best small family car. And, as much as it pains us, best medium petrol car was the Vauxhall Vectra, because it represents good value, apparently. The high-spec, low-cost BMW 7 Series took the large Prestige Award, whilst the best fun sports car was Mazda's MX-5. The best serious sports car was that most practical of all supercars, the Porsche 911. And the best newcomer? Peugeot's 206 took the honours there for its excellent residual values. But the overall winner, and the second-hand car you should all go out and buy tomorrow, is the Volkswagen Polo.
The figures for X registrations are filtering through now, and if you happen to be a car manufacturer, they don't make for pretty reading. Because in spite of the array of price cuts they're giving us, compared to 12 months ago, September registrations of new cars fell by nearly 9%. But perhaps most interesting is the structural change we're witnessing. Traditionally, fleets and business have bought more cars than individuals. But last month, private buyers made the lion's share of purchases. The upcoming tax changes may have signalled the beginning of the end for the company car. It seems the vogue for launching an internet site selling cars is catching. Now the car makers themselves are getting in the act. At the motor show, FordJourney.com was unveiled, a website selling cars direct from Ford. Eventually, the entire range will be available with even further discounts on top of the recent price cuts. There's no trade-in facility, but delivery should only take 10 days. Vauxhall, meanwhile, have also announced plans to conquer online selling. From November the 9th, every one of their models will have not just a showroom price,
but a cheaper internet price too. Of course, not everything's getting cheaper. From November the 1st, parking fines outside London are going up a tenner to £30, while the fixed penalty for a speeding offence will go up from £40 to £60. That may not sound much, but it equates to a 50% hike. The Treasury already trousers £42 million a year from parking tickets, and speeders cough up another £31 million. So, including road tax, VAT, petrol duty, next year us motorists will be giving Gordon Brown about £55 billion. No wonder he's smiling.
Sweet, sweet memories you gave me. You can't beat the memories you gave me.
Take one fresh and tender kiss.
The memories you gave me.
Add one stolen night.
Last September saw the third running of the Goodwood Revival meeting, which indulges itself in the nostalgia of the Sussex circuit, recreating not only its racing heydays, but also its wartime heritage. The cars all come from the 1948 to 66 era, when the track was fully active, and competitors and spectators alike are asked to dress in period clothing to literally turn back the clock. But that doesn't mean the racing is simply a demonstration run. When you realise just how much some of these cars are worth, the fact that their owners allow them to be raced in anger is all the more surprising. Take this Aston Martin, for example. It's called Project 212, and it's currently valued at around £3 million.
There he goes. There's the Aston Martin in the lead.
It's a one-off piece of motor racing heritage that led on its Le Mans debut back in 1962. It would never race at Le Mans again, superseded by Projects 214 and 5, and then at Goodwood last year.
Provisional pole-winning car. That's a very nasty shunt indeed.
Both ends of that Aston Project 212 have been savaged.
Since then, it's been painstakingly rebuilt for a new owner, who, hoping to avoid another costly rebuild, has entrusted me to drive it. I'd driven a Lister Jaguar at both the previous Goodwood Revivals and knew what an emotional time I'd be in for. My schoolboy dreams had come true.
I tell you, the tears are genuine.
I was back in the list the day before I was due to race the Aston, and when John Harper got his Cooper on the grass, I was about to be reminded that however careful you might be with someone else's car,
back onto the tarmac. No, he hasn't. He's spun.
Another driver's mistake can easily ruin your day.
I think the Lister of Tiffany Dell. What a shame. John Harper got onto the grass.
I wasn't impressed.
Onto the tarmac, but then when he got onto the tarmac, he lost control.
But entrusted with the Aston Martin for the GT race, I had to try and put such worries out of my mind as I sized up some of the mouth-watering opposition. E-types, Cobras, Aston Martins, and of course, Ferraris. Rows upon rows of glorious Ferraris. At Goodwood, it's the cars that are the real stars, but there are also plenty of famous names that just can't resist the attraction.
I think it's fabulous that guys are getting these cars and restoring them and keeping them running and putting them on the track where they belong. That's what they were built for.
It's unheard of to be on a track that is actually the same as it was in the days that these cars were current. So you really can make some comparisons between how you're doing and how they did in the old days.
I last drove a car like I'm driving in the race today in 1965. So I'm trying to sort of switch back onto an old program and say, you know, how do you do this, how do you do that, and relate to it.
The amazing thing for me is that the owners of these cars, some of them, the values are staggering. Either drive them wilder than somebody like myself, or they don't care. They think they're race cars and they should be driven as a race car.
You manhandle them, you know, they sort of step out and then come back and, you know. We're told to behave ourselves and take it quietly and do all this and do all that, but once you get behind that wheel, it's very hard to stop the red mist from coming down. I think we're all racers, so, you know, when the flag drops, off we go.
I actually prefer to see a car that has clearly been used. I mean, I think it's like battle scars. You know, do you want something that is purely ceremonial, or would you like something that actually has seen a life and the history is written on it?
As the start of the one-hour Tourist Trophy celebration event neared, the nerves were beginning to jangle. I would start the race and then hand over to rapid motoring scribe Tony Dron, who'd hopefully get Project 212 to the finish for the first time in 3 years of trying. John Surtees leapt into an immediate lead in David Piper's green 1964 Ferrari 275 LM, while I slotted the Aston into 4th from 5th on the grid. But before the first lap was over, I was back to 5th and already had a dent in the Aston's door. Fifth, though, was as low as I would go, as I hung on to a couple of lightweight E-types. Revelling in the throttle-sensitive, tail-happy characteristics of Project 212. At half-distance, team manager Richard Williams duly called me into the pit. I hopped out, and Tony jumped in. And we were soon back on our way. Up ahead, Danny Sullivan took the lead off David Piper, the American superstar driving Steve Hitchens' Shelby Cobra in impressive style. And he duly went on to score a popular win for the Anglo-American partnership. While Tony brought home number 5, from 5th on the grid to 5th at the finish. Happy days again for Project 212.
At least we finished. 5th is better than not finishing.
Next week on Top Gear, how voorsprung can your Technic get? The new Audi A4. The Z8 meets its automotive father, BMW's 507.
And at the risk of all that excitement becoming just too much, next week we'll be able to show you what's under this cover, the as yet unnamed new compact sports saloon from Jaguar. A World TV exclusive and what is arguably the most significant new Jaguar ever. Don't miss it.